When you think of a simp, who do you think of? Someone who is obsessed with someone, an overly clingy person, superfan that dedicates their life to you, or all of the above? Well, this is who I think of. This man in question is Stephen Mark Ryan. He is a YouTuber who owns the channel known as Solving the Money Problem. Solving the Money Problem has 248,000 subscribers and over 1,000 videos, all of them about worshipping Elon Musk and criticizing anyone who does not believe in him 100% of the time. And yeah, it gets pretty out of hand for him because it's like his favorite pastime, saying everyone is wrong and only Elon is right. His personal favorite target is Mary Barra, who is the CEO of General Motors, and I'm fairly certain this guy has a vendetta against her solely because she is a woman, and I don't even know at this point. I don't know. I'm tired of looking at this guy's ugly face, so let's go. If I ever start a merch line on this channel, I want to make a shirt that says, I bet against Elon and won, just to make this guy upset. That's all I want to do. Yes! An ad! I got an ad. Finally. I'm not going to talk about this person. Actually, no, I'm going to talk about him, but I don't have to listen to him. Anyway, let's just skip this one.
Tesla stock moved higher again today, up almost 6%, nearly $50 per share, closing.
This guy just loves to talk about how good Tesla stock is and how bad all the other stocks are. I'll have these videos in the description if you're really wanting to be a masochist and watch them. I've added 2 little black boxes in the upper left-hand corner and lower left-hand corner. One of them is the bleep count. This guy loves to say swear words and often has to bleep them out. It's kind of like a more boring, dull version of South Park, if it had absolutely no charm whatsoever. And the facepalm count is when he says something so mind-baffling and stupid that it just makes me want to facepalm. Also, if you get bored along the way, there are several parts where you can just skip along.
Tesla HODL shirt design. Notice, I designed this shirt here, and then, funnily enough, first Tesla stock to the moon shirt literally predicted the trajectory of Tesla stock. Total accident, I swear. Then I followed up with a Tesla stock to Mars shirt. Amazingly, the exact same fucking thing happened, and well, here we are, folks. I mean, guess I should make more merch designs, because every time I do. By the way, if you'd like your own Tesla HODL merch, link in description. There's shirts, mugs, hoodies, phone cases, and loads more. Great way to support the channel, and a great conversation starter. By the look of it, we're probably about maybe 15 or 20% away from this shirt becoming yet another self-fulfilling prophecy. This is a very bizarre coincidence. That is all it is, but I mean, what the actual f***? Anyway, link in pinned comment if you'd like your own Tesla HODL merch. Now, let's get on to the Monroe Live Teardown.
Today, we're going to be talking about evolution.
They talk a lot about the frame of the car and stuff like that, so yeah, I'm just gonna speed it up. That's what I'm gonna do. And probably explain a few things.
This is the infamous, there's 120 parts here, kind of car. Inside you can see I made lots and lots of comments about how much of an issue it is to try and put together the original Model 3. Now, did that make people happy? Probably not. And if I would have probably gone to a normal car company and said this kind of stuff, the insults that I slung would probably have been looked at as a real big issue. But not to Elon Musk. I said this should be one part. And I was talking basically about half of this. And guess what? One part. But Elon is one of those guys who's never really quite satisfied. So the one part and the connecting parts and the other part, the other casting, he felt should be one part. And guess what? That's what he did over here. This is the Model Y. This is the casting for the Model Y. And you can see that it's all one part. And you can see that there's a lot of room in here. A lot of room to put in a plastic tray. And if you remember back there on the Model 3, this used to be another chunk of sheet metal. Actually, it was aluminum, but it didn't matter. It was useless, wasted space. This is a good idea, and it evolves. He started out one way, he got a suggestion, he did basically what we thought would be the right thing to do, and then he went one step further. But that's not all he did.
I do have one issue with this, only one, and that is the idea that having a frame made out of, like, a bunch of parts is a bad thing. Thing is, it's not entirely bad. It does drive the construction cost up some, but it actually leaves the repair costs lower, because if you were in a wreck in that frame of a car and the entire thing got bent, you'd have to replace the whole thing or get it all bent back together, which would be pretty expensive. Meanwhile, if it were made out of a bunch of parts, you could possibly get some of those parts repaired and replaced, which would be cheaper. But yeah, other than that, I was okay with it.
So a couple of things I want to discuss here. First of all, Sandy Munro alluding to the original Munro and Associates teardown of Tesla's Model 3. At the time, they absolutely panned this thing, justifiably so. It was pretty embarrassing, of course. Don't blame Tesla, they were very inexperienced when it comes to manufacturing a mass production vehicle. However, as Sandy Munro points out, rather than getting butthurt and defensive when they heard some critical feedback, Tesla took it on board and implemented. Not only took it on board and implemented, but took it multiple steps further. In the span of just a few years, 5 of them, in fact, Tesla, the company, in terms of their manufacturing capabilities, forget everything else, has gone from laughing stock of the automotive industry to embarrassing the entire automotive industry in just 5 years. In the intro, I discussed momentum, trajectory, where are we going from here? Cast your mind forward into the future. If this is how much evolution we've seen in just half a decade, from the worst to the best, what do you think the next 5 years looks like?
The reason that I put circus music over his speech is he's just trying to say that Tesla is number one and that no one can compete with them. Even though that's a lie and that a lot of people have actually been competing with them pretty well. Well, as well as they can, considering Tesla's essentially a monopoly over the electric car industry.
So he went from no castings to 2 castings to 1 casting in the back, and then we moved to the front of the car. And here we have the front casting. Now you'll notice too that there's this gigantic open space right here. It used to be called the firewall. They changed it because people were, intimidated by the word fire in firewall. But in essence, it was there in case the engine caught on fire. That's why they called it a firewall. This thing is now one great big giant chunk of plastic. Why? Because they can do it. It doesn't do anything else. These castings are so rigid, so strong, so incredibly well designed.
I don't get how people were intimidated by the word fire and firewall. Thing is, if the engine caught on fire, it would help keep the person safe, which isn't supposed to be threatening. It's supposed to be a safety feature, but yeah, if people don't want fire to be implied in their vehicle's construction, I can understand.
Just want to remind everybody that words really matter. Incredibly well designed. Not decent, not good. Incredibly well designed.
I have a little government secret that I want to show you guys. I could be having my life on the line right now. It's a little something called hyperbole. Incredibly is a relatively vague term. It doesn't mean number one in particular. It usually means very highly, which I say, yes, the frame is designed very well. Incredibly well. But it's not the best design in existence.
You don't need that extra piece of sheet metal to close it out. And then he went one step further. And that's why you see this gigantic hole where a floor usually sits. Because, again, these guys at Tesla, they take everything that you say literally, and then they go and basically implement. It's amazing. It is truly, to me, amazing that these guys can do so much in such a short period of time.
I completely agree with what he's saying. Removing the floor doesn't just make the car frame lighter, but it also makes it easier to make because there's less metal that's involved, less edges, less polygons for the 3D render. It's really cool. And yeah, since the batteries have a military-grade aluminum armor around them, it's even better. So, you're going to get a durable floor as well.
Once again, words really matter. Amazing, 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 amazing. And in terms of how much Tesla is able to do in a short span of time, this speaks volumes of not only Tesla's leadership, but also their engineering talent, capabilities, and the company's culture, the very DNA of Tesla. Why is it that a company who 5 years ago sucked shit at putting together vehicles is now running circles around the entire automotive industry? Companies who've been in business for decades, in some cases over a century.
I just had to give him a dunce hat. The statement he made was just so stupid and brainless that it's just baffling. Tesla is not running circles around the automotive industry.
Tesla's gone from the laughing stock to the example. We heard Elon Musk in an interview many years ago with Marcus Brownlee discussing the idea of the best part is no part, the best process is no process. And we've seen Tesla actually follow up on these words. This wasn't just some catchphrase. Elon was serious. Delete parts, delete processes. And this is exactly what we have seen. The fact that Tesla has been able to do what any automotive company could have done in the last 5 years and has gone from the worst to the best in that span of time is an indictment on not only the leadership, but the engineering capabilities and the culture of legacy automotive manufacturers. GM could have done this. Ford could have done this. Volkswagen could have done this. Toyota could have done this. None of them did. Admittedly, they do have a major disadvantage. One, they don't have Elon.
This is Christian von Koenigsegg, the founder and CEO of Koenigsegg, which is a Swedish hypercar manufacturer. Now, the thing is, him and his team of 400 employees all work very hard to make some of the most advanced cars in the entire world. That right there is the Koenigsegg 1.1, which is often considered the first mega car, the first car to output 1 megawatt of energy. And yeah, the cars are not just designed by him, they're designed by engineers as well. In fact, there are plates inside the car that have names of them on who built the car and stuff like that. Then we have people like Horatio Pagani, the founder and CEO of Pagani. Pagani has made a lot of iconic Italian super and hypercars, and the thing about it is that every car that he makes, or his team makes, of 55 employees or so, maybe 150, it's been a while since I've checked, but yeah, they are smaller than Koenigsegg, but thing is, they have a few employees that build the cars for them. They also make almost everything in-house, and the engines as well have plates that say who built them as well, which is good. And yeah, thing about it is that I found at least 7 sources, about 3 of them stating that Elon Musk does not design the cars, but takes credit for them, 3 of them that state that he does design the cars, and about 1 that stated that he is in between and is mainly just a salesperson.
And 2, they don't have their pick of the bunch from the world's elite engineers. I mean, really. Tesla is a company made up of the world's best and brightest. Let's just be honest here, as we know from surveys of graduating engineering students. Everyone wants to work for Elon at either SpaceX or Tesla. Literally, these 2 companies jostle for the number 1 and 2 position year after year when graduating engineering students are surveyed. Where do you most want to work? Every year for the last half decade or more, it's been Tesla or SpaceX in number 1 and 2. And
Yes, he is correct to some extent. In the past few years, Tesla and SpaceX have been number 1 and 2, but companies other than them are not far behind. Unlike what he wants you to believe in this next statement he's about to make, which is just laughably cringe.
at number 420,000 on the list, you'll find Ford and Government Motors and Lockheed Martin and Boeing.
You uncultured swine. It's General Motors, not Government Motors. Get it right.
This means that Tesla gets their pick of the bunch from the world's best and brightest. Literally, the top 1%, the top 0.1%. They all want to work for Elon. And by extension, that also means that everyone else, including competing automotive companies, have to choose from the leftovers.
The reason that they are leftovers is simple. They just haven't shown their potential. Now, the thing is, just because they're not straight A students doesn't mean they're bad by any mean. And first off, saying that just because they don't have the best choice, like they don't have the immediate, majority, doesn't mean they're inferior by any mean. In fact, there could be some Einsteins or Stephen Hawkings in that group. Yeah, there could. And the thing is, leftover doesn't mean they're inferior. Leftover means that they're just a remainder of people that just haven't been chosen into a group yet. So I'm just tired of this guy saying everyone's inferior because it's really starting to piss me off.
And no offense to any of the engineers who currently work at Ford or Government Motors or name your legacy automotive manufacturer, but you just gotta be honest. If your engineering talent pool is made up of leftovers, C, D, and E grade players, I mean, I'm sure you'll do some decent work, some decent engineering. We're just not gonna be able to keep pace with Tesla, and we've seen this over the last few years. And again, I go back to the point earlier in the video. It's not about what's just happened, it's about what does this look like in the future. When I say Tesla's lead is unassailable, I really mean it. It's not only that they're years in front of the other companies in terms of their capabilities, it's that they're moving ahead faster than anyone else, meaning it is literally impossible to catch up. If you're already starting behind Tesla, and you're not moving as fast as Tesla, you never catch up to Tesla.
There are actually a lot of people ahead of Tesla, but they're not as well known because, well, Tesla has a monopoly, as I said earlier.
We talked a little bit about the rear end of the vehicle, but on the Tesla Model Y that we tore to pieces, the first one, you can see that all these pieces turned into a good number of those. A good number of those pieces turned into a casting. Now, let's think about this casting for a little bit. And I'm sure that there's some engineers out there who are going, "Oh no, he's going to rub our nose in it again." And the answer is correct.
As long as those pieces are relatively affordable to repair, I don't mind.
What an absolute fucking savage.
Let's go over here. A front casting, a rear casting, a center casting that basically is also could potentially be the battery storage area. 3 castings, been here for 15 years. So let's talk about evolution, okay? So there are some animals who haven't evolved at all over the centuries. They look kind of like prehistoric, they are prehistoric. And yet other animals, like a horse, went from something about the size of a dog, a small dog, to what we see today. How does that happen? Why do they evolve? Well, it has something to do with intelligence.
If what Sandy is saying is true, and some form of intelligence is required to go from laughing stock of the automotive manufacturing industry to a leading example, does that then not also indicate a lack of evolution is directly linked to a lack of intelligence? And that may explain why General Motors, Ford, Volkswagen, Toyota, Hyundai, Honda, name your automotive company, has failed to make the same kind of progress that Tesla has, not in the last 5 years, but in the last 50 or 100? Is Sandy Munro suggesting that all of the world's legacy automotive manufacturers today are dumb? I don't know, by just thinking out loud here. Certainly might explain a few things. In fact, it pretty much explains everything.
Oh my God, who the hell cares?
Voila! You went from basically a dinosaur to something a lot more creative and inventive to the world-class design that you see sitting over here.
There's actually a disadvantage to having one of these really advanced frames. Now, the thing about it is that the old frame is like regular Technic Legos, and the new frame is like Lego Duplo. With the new frame, you can't exactly build it into much more than what it was originally designed for. Meanwhile, with the old frame, you could put it in pretty much anything by swapping out a certain part or something. And that's the reason I prefer the old frame, but the new frame does have its benefits of being cheaper to make, which I do like it for that one reason.
Once again, words matter, and once again, we just heard Sandy Munro referring to Tesla's engineering as world-class. So hey, don't take my word for it. Listen to the automotive engineering expert of experts.
I wouldn't call him the expert of experts, but okay, you can believe that.
All I can tell you is that this is the right way to do business, and the reason for that is because it saves the company hundreds of millions of dollars, not to mention the square footage that you need for a plant that would do all these different stampings and whatnot. You need stamping machines, you need dies, you need people to operate them, you need robots, you need Pillsbury, you need pits in the floor, you need people to drag the swarf or off-wall out of the plant. You've got forklift trucks, you've got big trucks, little trucks, all running around, forklift trucks, everybody doing everything, and yet, when you've got castings, and castings, the mold closes, the mold opens. The parts come out, they go into a trim die, and they head for a little bit of machining.
If you weren't able to keep up, which is okay since he said a lot, those are the instructions to build a Tesla. Well, those are the instructions to build a regular car.
So I think Sandy Munro was just describing parts and processes. Lots of them. Elon Musk, best part, no part, best process, no process, so delete them. And Munro is just describing all the parts and processes that Tesla, wait for it, has deleted. And when we talk about saving a company hundreds of millions of dollars, clearly this stuff really matters. This isn't just an engineering nerd getting excited about some nerdy engineering shit. This has huge, profound business implications. This is why Tesla is printing money.
The reason that Tesla is printing money is because their stock price is hyperinflated. Like, really hyperinflated. I'll have a video in the description talking about how it's hyperinflated and stuff like that.
Tesla is making EVs profitably at scale and nobody else is accomplishing the same goal. Tesla has such an unfair competitive advantage because they have big brain engineers that do stuff like this. They're literally running circles around the rest of the automotive industry. And this isn't just limited to legacy automotive manufacturers. The same is true of new EV startups. They haven't made the mistakes and had the learnings yet. It's too early. They're not doing high enough volumes for some of these things to make economic sense, like the huge casting. There is a reason today that Tesla doesn't use the gigacasting on the Model S and X. They're low volume vehicles. It doesn't make economic sense, so they can't. So if a company like Lucid or Rivian wants to do the same thing, well, guess what? It doesn't make financial sense until they reach many hundreds of thousands of units per year on each vehicle model. So how do you compete with Tesla on cost if you don't have the volume to justify these kind of investments in equipment and technologies like a gigantic casting machine? Oh wait, you don't. You fucked.
This, the black one over there, the Model 3, what had happened with that? Stamps, 100 of times, then put glue on it, then weld it all up, then check for the welds, then try and straighten it out with 2x4s because you do that on the factory floor because that's what happens. Steel springs. This is like a stone. It doesn't move. Anybody that's watching this video and is going to design a new product, a new car, a new vehicle, a new truck, whatever, think seriously about this. By the way, there is no heat treat required for this because it happens so quickly in basically in less than a second. I'm not going to try and tell you in milliseconds, but less than a second this is filled up. That means there's no induced stress. It moves too quickly to have induced stress like a normal casting. This is the way to go. This is my all-time favorite structural members inside of any vehicle that I've seen so far. I'm really happy with it.
The reason I'm running the current video at 5 times the original speed is because they're literally just saying the exact same thing over and over again. The frame's well built, they put less parts in it for each generation. It's just easier to tear apart, which isn't exactly the best thing, but okay, yeah, you can agree on that, but if you want, you can think the same way as them, but all I'm gonna say is just, I prefer my car to be more modular. That's all.
So the question is, how many automotive manufacturers will heed Sandy Munro's advice? This is how to do it. Just copy Tesla. Do your own gigantic castings.
This clip is somehow even longer. Yeah, if it were not at this speed, it would be like 2.5 minutes long or something like that. But yeah, they're just talking about layering of metal and stuff like that and just how the interior and exterior have gone from a bunch of pieces just to one. Yeah, it's kind of like Duplo, how pieces are more complex, but yet you need less to build something altogether. That's kind of what they're saying at this point.
is, are any automotive manufacturers at all actually going to listen? Do they even want to move on up? Or are they going to continue digging themselves 6 feet under? Actually, I kind of already know the answer to that one, but...
No, you don't. Stop acting like you know everything. Yeah, you don't.
Let's pretend that they still have a chance. Hope you guys and girls have enjoyed this video. Like I said, one of the best Monroe Live teardowns of all time. The focus, the emphasis, the key takeaway from this video isn't how amazing Tesla's engineering is today. It is their pace of innovation. It requires a little thinking, which I know sometimes hurts and some of you aren't a big fan of, but think a little bit about what this means for the future of Tesla versus the rest of the automotive industry. If this is what they've done in half a decade, from worst of the bunch to best in class, world class in Sandy Munro's own words, just think about the next 5, 10, 15 plus years. You ain't seen nothing yet. And those who are still a little confused as to how exactly Tesla might sell 20 plus million electric vehicles in a single year, per their publicly stated goals, they're aiming to do that around 2030. Those who think, well, hang on a minute, Teslas are expensive. No one's going to be able to afford them. It's worth letting the implications of Tesla's pace of innovation sink in. The more parts and processes they delete, the lower the cost to produce a vehicle. Not only the lower the cost, but the shorter the time and the smaller the factory footprint. Take some time to let the implications sink in. Something I don't think the likes of Mary B. Aspara have done.
I'm about to end this man's whole career with 3 words. Third world countries. Countries where the average yearly salary isn't even enough to buy a Honda Civic, let alone a Tesla. Countries that won't be able to afford a Tesla are countries like Syria, which has been fighting a civil war with itself for over a decade at this point. Same thing with Yemen, which has also been fighting a civil war with itself since, I believe, at least the mid-90s or so. And South Sudan, the world's newest country, only being founded in 2011. Safe to say there's more pressing issues in this world than what your car is powered by. Those were just 3 of the most well-known third world countries. There are dozens more. And after all I just said, that was just me ranting about one video. This guy is over 1,000. I'm gonna do some more ranting, but it's gonna be on different videos from different channels.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Young Money Investments. In today's video, we're going to switch up the style a little bit. We are going to be talking about the Porsche Taycan, the supposed, according to Doug DeMuro, Tesla Model S killer. We're going to be talking about his review video. I want to talk to you about a lot of the points and a lot of the facts that I think he missed because he is not a Tesla owner in general. And I want to talk to you a little bit about how this is going to affect the stock price because I think, honestly and truly, this Porsche is no match for the Tesla. Let's just check out this review video because Doug's got a lot of things wrong. Good guy, but he's got a lot of things wrong. All today on Young Money Investments.
I may have sped up the intro and all, but it was just a trashy intro, it felt like. Just the intro like, oh, look at me, I'm rich, I drive Teslas. Driving a Tesla doesn't mean you're rich, it means you're middle class. Driving a Rolls Royce or a Bentley or a Koenigsegg or a Bugatti or whatever means you are rich, because those cars actually take a lot of money to earn, and sometimes you have to be on a special wait list in order to even get one by buying other cars from their company. So yeah, if I could give it a Doug score, I'd give it like a 2 out of 10.
Alright, you guys, so I think one of the most important things to remember about this video is obviously the Porsche has been very hyped and very talked about. I think it's going to be interesting to see some of the points that Doug kind of points out in this video. But as I said, Doug is definitely more of a ICE guy. He's definitely more of an internal combustion engine type of person. He's not really big on electric cars. He's never been very positive when he did his Model X review. His very first Model 3 review wasn't all that positive. His Model 3 review was Model 3 performance review was decently, promising. But again, he said that the styling was bland and things like that. So a lot of the things that Doug says about Teslas are kind of lackluster. And so I think coming from him to kind of my perspective in owning a Tesla, I see a lot of very, very, very good things with Tesla. Let's roll the video.
Tesla fans have barely even noticed the arrival of the Audi e-tron or the Jaguar I-Pace. They just don't bring as much excitement and hype as Tesla commands.
And there's a reason for that. There's a reason that Tesla commands the type of hype that it does. It's because the range is there. It's because the infrastructure with the charging network is there. There's a reason. Tesla knows how to develop and then drop and release products, whereas a lot of these other car companies just don't know how to.
Porsche first announced the Taycan as a concept car called the Mission E back in 2015.
Which looks pretty cool.
In the car then. But when Porsche announced it was going into production, it was a mad rush to Porsche dealers to place orders. Suddenly, there was a new electric car that everyone was interested in.
Which is kind of funny considering, take a look right here. We have a news article here on The Driven, which came out, this was back in July 2019 or July 31st, pardon me. This says with just over a month left until its global debut, pre-orders of the Porsche Taycan electric car, which is understood to be released in 3 variants, have surged to 30,000. They've surged to 30,000 pre-orders? You guys, The Tesla Cybertruck did more than that in 48 hours. It did over 150,000 pre-orders in the first 2 days, and we are now about 2 weeks out, and we're sitting at over 250,000 pre-orders for that truck. So we're talking about 30,000 pre-orders for this Porsche electric vehicle compared to the Model 3, which again was over, I believe, at least over a quarter million vehicles pre-ordered, if not over, like, I think it could have even been well into the 400,000 or 500,000 vehicle mark. So you're talking about 30,000, and Doug's talking about, you know, it's just surging and so popular. That's not even a drop in the bucket when you compare it to the pre-orders that Tesla's have.
Then there's this, the king of the hill, the Taycan Turbo S with 750 horsepower.
That also costs $185,000. $185,000.
6 seconds. Of course, all this comes at a price.
There we go. Here's the truth.
The Taycan Turbo S starts around $185,000 with similar range.
$185,000.
Tesla, the long-range Model S, currently offers about 370 miles between charges. But there's more to this car than...
So we're talking about a price tag that's roughly, roughly about $70,000 cheaper for one of the performance P100D models or variants of the Model S that gets way more range, and it's still roughly $70,000 cheaper. Like, and it's a competitor?
The reason it's a competitor is because some people like to have a car that isn't made out of 100% plastic and has body panels put on so poorly that a toddler could rip them off. I think it's an embarrassment that Tesla is even selling their car for that much when it's probably a $60,000 car at the absolute most, and that's being generous in my opinion.
Alright, I'll give it that. The charge port, cool. Definitely a little cooler than the Tesla, but it's a charge port door. Again, cool, but it's a charge port door. One of the things I will say about the Tesla is that they do not have this cool little 3D image or feature that the Porsche has, and I think Mercedes also has this feature. I know BMW for sure does have this feature, and it's actually really good. Teslas don't have that. That is something that, again, 1 point goes to Porsche over the Tesla in terms of how this camera system can kind of piece together and stitch together all these images.
The fuse will kind of blow air throughout the cabin. Focus will move the climate vents and focus them on you, but my favorite is individual because you get to set the positioning of the climate vents.
Oh, I wonder where we've seen this before. Could it be on a Tesla vehicle? Could they have taken this from a Tesla vehicle? Absolutely. This comes straight out of the Model 3. This is a Tesla feature that Porsche decided to rip off.
Feel the collective...
Out of all the features to take from a Tesla, why the most stupid, redundant feature of them all, having to control your air conditioning with a touchscreen? Why couldn't it have been like the self-driving capability or, you know, something actually good? Could it have been something better?
That's not how Porsche adjusts climate vents in the future. That's how Tesla did it, and Porsche decided to copy them. Again, little things that Doug does not pay attention to or does not know in regards to the Tesla vehicles. Pretty cool feature. One of those things Tesla does not currently have, although you can draw and make pictures and everything on the Tesla. That's one of their little Easter eggs or features that they have on there. But that's actually a nice little convenient feature, especially since you do have that middle touchscreen dash there. So again, point to Porsche. Oh my gosh, can you believe how cool the car turned and changed? What a cool little feature!
And next up, we move on to the back seat of the Taycan. And the first thing you notice back here is that it's sporty. There's no 3-person bench seat back here. Instead, you have 2 individual bucket seats, and they are quite heavily bolstered. Because the theory here is you can take your whole family on the track, and they will slosh around in their seats.
This is where I believe that the video goes downhill, because he starts to complain that the vehicle only has 4 seats for its price range, which, thing is, it could be much, much, much worse. You could have 2 seats for even more money. You could even have 1 seat for more money as well.
So you're telling me you're taking your whole family, but you don't have a 5th seat in a car that's $185,000? Yes, he does say there's an option to do a 5-seater, but I'm sitting here scratching my head. The Model S can have a jump seat in the trunk, and you can have 7 passengers in that vehicle.
We call that child abuse.
This one comes standard with 4? I just gotta question myself. Where is the practicality in a sedan? If you want sporty and fast, get a 2-door coupe. Get a 911, or get the Roadster if you're buying a Tesla. I mean, the Roadster isn't nearly that much more expensive than this current version of the Taycan. Like that. Think about that for a second. You're comparing this car, and it's really only about $15,000 more to get the Tesla Roadster.
This is a controversial opinion, but I think the new Tesla Roadster just looks absolutely soulless and just boring. There's no vents. The vents on the side are either really limited or fake. It's just, it makes me sad every time I look at it.
Oh my gosh, how crazy, Doug! You have map lights in the back seat. I wonder who else has map lights. Oh, I don't know, just probably about every other manufacturer. Woo!
Let's take a listen to that exhaust note.
I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, yeah, it's an electric car. I like that. That face right there is the reason you buy an electric vehicle. That is one thing that I will say, no matter whether it's a Porsche, whether it's a Tesla, there is nothing like driving an electric vehicle. It is almost like a complete sensory overload when you've driven a car for multiple years and you go from a gasoline engine vehicle to a electric vehicle. It puts the fun back in things. Not that, performance vehicles don't, that are gasoline, but there's just something about punching the pedal and how quick the acceleration happens. Like, that says it all, and that's what I love.
This is something I absolutely agree with. Yeah, electric vehicles are a completely new experience from gas vehicles. That's one of the things I'll agree with him, and
Has he not driven a Model S though, or like a P100D? Has he never put a Tesla in ludicrous mode? Like, this is again the thing that like bothers me about this review is he hasn't really apparently actually felt the acceleration of a Model S P100D. Put that sucker in ludicrous mode. I'm fairly certain that 2.28 0 to 60 in the Model S is faster, and we haven't even seen the plaid version of the Model S. It's going to be coming out fairly soon with a tri-motor in that Model S, increased range. That sucker is going to smoke. Yes, I said smoke this Taycan. Wait, he's comparing the Model 3 performance to the Taycan? You're kidding me. You cannot compare a $185,000 car to a $50,000 car. Like, let's just keep watching the video. I can't argue with that. I can't win. I can't argue with that.
yes, he absolutely cannot compare a $185,000 car to a $50,000 car, because they're in a completely different range from each other.
You guys, I had no idea that 185K is before options.
Oh boy, this guy's gonna have an absolute field day once I tell him the base price of the Bugatti Chianti $14 million. Originally $9 million. That is before options, but a spot to reserve one was sold for $14 million because that's how desperate someone was to get a Bugatti Chianti. And it's not even that good looking.
Like, oh my gosh, like, it's not even in the same category. Not even in the same category as a Model S, in my opinion. You could buy a Model S and a fully loaded Model 3 and apparently add options to this, and you would still be paying more for both those cars together. Like, what was Porsche thinking? They're just so cool that they can release a car with worse specs, but have a little bit better fit and finish, and they can charge, I don't know, 80 grand more than their closest competitor? I don't understand that whatsoever, but let's keep rolling.
He has more good points, but just less knowledge on the fact that cars aren't all made to be super practical machines. Anyway, let's deal with the last person, which is actually going to be a positive review.
What's going on, everyone? It's Sean from All Things EV, and this is why I disagree with Doug DeMuro's opinion about the Tesla Cybertruck. So first off, I want to say that I'm a big fan of Doug's channel, or channels. I guess he's got a couple of them now. He does great work in the automotive space, talking about cars, doing reviews of cars, and covering all the quirks and features of the cars. He is really great, and he actually said in this video that I want to touch on that he's a fan of Tesla, but he made a really big mistake when talking about the Cybertruck, and I want to cover that. I've also been thinking that I need to do a comparison between the Cybertruck and some more traditional gasoline trucks anyways. So I'm going to kill two birds with one stone here and offer a counter position to what Doug DeMuro thinks about the Cybertruck. So let's go ahead and jump in.
One of the reasons that I like this guy's videos is that, one, he doesn't have some tacky intro or forces you to buy merchandise at the very beginning of the video. He just talks calmly and explains what the video is about, which I really like.
I think the styling is absolutely awful, but for me, this truck is an early flop for more than just that. The value proposition against other trucks isn't there.
The first thing that I'll give to Doug is that I don't disagree that the design of the Cybertruck is just odd and it's strange and it's very different. I will say, though, that I think that over time, this truck will end up being an iconic design, and people will look back and think, oh, remember that time when we saw that pickup truck, that Tesla pickup truck that they drove up on stage and we thought it was ridiculously ugly? Oh yeah, I remember that. Now we think it's beautiful. I suspect that this is going to be one of those things where it just took a little while to get used to because it was so different and it was so stark in comparison to what we are all used to today with a traditional looking pickup truck.
I completely agree with what he's saying. Over time, the Cybertruck may become beautiful in people's eyes. Same thing happened with the Pagani Huayra, and a more recent example is the Pagani Utopia, which people at first thought both of them were ugly, and now people are starting to think that the Utopia is beautiful, and now people all over the world think the Huayra is absolutely gorgeous. Thing is, it just takes time for people to get used to stuff, which I do in fact believe this is correct. Anyway, let's go to the next scene.
That being said, one of Doug's biggest complaints was the price differentiation between gasoline trucks and this Cybertruck.
But listen to this, a base model Chevy Silverado tows 9,800 pounds, basically the same, and it starts at only $30,000. 20 grand less than that mid-level Cybertruck. Now, obviously, the base model Silverado has practically nothing. No luxuries, cloth seats, pretty crappy, single cab. It is a very basic truck.
But he made a really, really big mistake in that he started comparing the Cybertruck, which has a double cab and a 6.5-foot bed length, with trucks that have a smaller bed length and only a single cab and that start at $30,000. So if we're really going to compare apples to apples here, we have to do away with the traditional gasoline variants that only have a single cab and a shorter bed.
I absolutely agree 100%. If you're going to compare two different trucks, make sure they at least have the same cab or same or comparable bed length or something. Even if it's like half a foot shorter, it doesn't matter, but make sure it's like at least around the same length, like within a half-foot margin.
So let's go ahead and do an apples-to-apples comparison with the Cybertruck, the Ford F-150, the Chevy Silverado 1500, and the Ram 1500. The price range for the Cybertruck is $39,900 to $69,900, and though we don't know the actual battery size, I'm going to take some wild guesses here based on the range and based on the size of the vehicle, that it's going to come in at 100 to 250 kilowatt-hour battery pack sizes. Refueling costs, if we base it on the national average for electricity, which is 11 cents per kilowatt-hour, it's going to run somewhere between $11 and $27.50 to charge or refuel the Cybertruck. The range on that's 250 to 500, payload 3,500, towing capacity 7,500 to 14,000. Now, this is where it gets really, really interesting. For the Ford F-150, we've got a very similar price point when we compare the double cab and the 6.5-foot to the Cybertruck. All right, so it's 36,340 to 55,570. The fuel tank is 23 to 36 gallons, and the refueling cost is $59, basically $60 to just over $93 to refuel a single tank on the F-150. The range on that, if we base it on the city driving, is 506 miles to 792, depending on the tank size. The payload for that is 1,700 to 2,640, and the towing capacity is 5,000 to 13,000. And for the Silverado 1500, we're looking at just over 36,000 and just under $61,000 for that price range. It's got a 24 to 28 gallon tank, and the cost to refuel is $62 and some change to $72 and some change, and that's going to get you about 552 miles to 644. Payload is 2,250 and the towing capacity 9,400. And lastly, for the Ram 1500, it's going to run a little over $32,000 to just under $48,000. The fuel tank is 23 to 26 gallons, and it's going to cost just under $60 to just over $67 to refuel that each time. And you're going to be able to go 460 to 520 miles. Payload is 1,710 to 2,100, and the towing capacity is 7,410 to 12,750. So we can see that when we compare an apples to apples in terms of size of the cabin as well as the bed, that the Cybertruck is actually right on par with their competition in the gasoline space. One of the things that Doug failed to mention that I think makes a huge difference in the total cost of ownership is how much less expensive it is to recharge a battery on the Cybertruck versus refuel the the gasoline engines on these pickup trucks. So when you factor all the costs in, not just purchase price, but also cost to refuel or recharge, the Cybertruck comes in significantly lower. And of course, the longer that you own that vehicle, the less expensive it's going to be. So Doug, if you're watching this video, I would encourage you not just to focus on the purchase price of the vehicle, but also compare apples to apples in terms of cabin size as well as bed size. And then probably most importantly, the cost to power and refuel a Cybertruck is going to be significantly less than it will be for a gasoline vehicle. And that's just charging it from the grid. And if you're slapping solar panels on your house, you not only have the good conscience that you're not polluting the air with gasoline and toxic fumes, but you're also reducing that total cost of ownership of the Cybertruck. Sean Mitchell, All Things EV, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch everyone on the next video.
Now, the thing is, I do agree with the statements he makes. It is cheaper in the long haul to own a Cybertruck than a normal traditional truck, because traditional trucks have engines with hundreds or even thousands of moving parts that could all break. But yeah, one thing is, I like that instead of promoting social media at the beginning, he promotes it at the very end of the video. That's nice. Anyway, we are going to talk about a few YouTube shorts that infuriate me. Don't know if that's a word, but infuriate me is what I meant to say. We're going to view two videos from a channel known as Tesla Flex, which you may have possibly heard of, but yeah, this is going to be one of the few channels we're showing in the shorts category.
Is the interior quality on the Tesla worth the price tag? Let's find out. Now take in mind that I'm sitting in a 2020 Model S Performance P100D. And that's not the worst part. Let me explain. Now, I'm sorry, but if I'm paying $120,000 for a car, I kind of want it to have better quality than this. Just saying.
You can interpret that video in whatever way you want, but just know that, yeah, hype does not equal quality. Now, this next video really infuriates me, because he wants to compare a cheapo Model S Plaid to a Rolls Royce.
Did you know the brand new Model S Plaid has an armrest in the back that folds down? But that's not all. There's also a little storage area for passengers. And not one, but two wireless charging pads built in. This is so much better than a Rolls Royce.
The Ferrari.
You say to me, you little Supra!
That was probably the single dumbest YouTube short I've ever seen in my entire life. This guy has most definitely never actually ridden in a Rolls Royce before. But yeah, you can't just be saying that with your boring Model S Plaid interior that doesn't even really have reclining rear seats. Like, yeah, you can't just make statements like that. This is the rear seat of a Tesla Model S Plaid. Just, it's so boring to look at. The touchscreen is way too far away, and the only interesting thing is the probably fake wood on that armrest. Meanwhile, this is the rear seat you get in a Rolls Royce. Just look at that. You get reclining leg rests. Yeah, all that silver stuff, yeah, it's made of real metal. Everything's real in this. You get real wood, you get real leather, you get real metal. And yes, those are curtains over the windows. Yes, this is a real Rolls-Royce interior. Now, yes, you can get a much cheaper Rolls-Royce interior, but even the cheap interiors are still better than anything Tesla has to provide. Now we're going to look at another YouTube Shorts creator called Jeremy Judkins.
What is this, honey? I was shocked, honey. I was in tears almost. And they had a white refrigerator. I was like, oh, not a white refrigerator. Girl, please put your shoes on. Let's go find you a home.
This is absolutely the epitome of first world problems. Your doors don't close when you press on the brakes. Who cares? Do you know what? God made us hands for a reason. BMW didn't want to make a little stupid tech device that has to be recharged every so often. They just wanted to make a good car that can last over 10 years, potentially. Now let's look at another YouTube short from him before we go to the next person. No. Just because your company makes a lot of money does not mean they're good. For example, Stellantis, basically it's Chrysler, Fiat, and Peugeot mixed together, and these companies are like notorious for not being very reliable. Yet they make a lot of money. Like, just because they make a lot of money does not mean they're super good. And also, Tesla does not make that much money. Their price is completely hyperinflated. There's going to be a video in the description explaining everything about it. Now, on to our last person, all about Tesla.
Every time I drive my Tesla, someone tries to race me. So Mischief sent me a Tesla racing shirt. It has the Tesla logo on the front and back, so everyone knows that I'm driving a Tesla. So now when that Prius tries to race me and loses, they know exactly who they lost to.
A Prius? Really? You know Priuses have like less than 100 horsepower. Yeah, that's how you can tell this is unfair. And you're driving like a Model S Plaid. That's not a fair drag race, you know that. And also, I'm fairly certain people could tell that you were driving a Tesla, not from your shirt, but just from your car. The fact that it has a little T on the back, they could totally tell it's a Tesla. Now let's go into the last post from this person, which is just the worst of them all so far.
Today, I finally figured out why Teslas cost so much. And it was actually really surprising to me, but I noticed that video games run really smoothly on the Tesla. But after some digging, I realized my Tesla has an AMD Ryzen, and apparently they're not cheap. But it honestly makes sense.
Let me get this straight. You think that a $1,000 processor being in a car justifies the car being worth $150,000 or more dollars? Absolutely not. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of, and I'm just done with this. I'm going to the next person, which will be positive, and then after that, I'm just done.
What would be the best all-round, most practical, most efficient, most impressive car on the road right now? Well, it'd probably have to be this, the Tesla Model Y. It has the best tech, a crazy amount of storage, amazing efficiency, extremely low running costs, and best of all, it just received the highest safety score of any vehicle ever tested. The only problem is you'll have to wait more than a few months to get your hands on one.
I would agree with all of that, other than looks. I do not like the way it looks. It looks like an inbred Tesla Model 3. That's all I think. Now, just one last video.
What the do you do when you're charging your car? Netflix is always a good option. Otherwise, there's beach buggy racing using the steering wheel and brake pedal. Or you could serve yourself a gourmet meal like these vegan organic bananas. You could even take the opportunity to wash your car. Or it can be the perfect chance to catch up on some sleep. Wait, it's done charging already?
I like this little YouTube short because it just has a good vibe to it. He put a little bit of music when he was playing that beach buggy game, which is nowhere near as good as Mario Kart, but, well, it's the best you can get when you're in your car. But other than that, I enjoyed the video. At the end of the day, these people are just people, and Tesla is just a car company. And we are all the same on the same level. We are just humans. Anyway, that is all. Goodbye.